Hey, welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. I'm your host, Sal Interdonato. The Black Knight Nation podcast is brought to you by Higher Echelon. Higher Echelon is a company run by Joe Ross, who's a former Army fullback, former Army assistant coach, an Army officer, a guest on the Black Knight Nation podcast. We thank Higher Echelon for sponsoring this podcast. We're going to review the UMass win, Army's 44-7 win over UMass. And then we're going to talk some Navy football. And we're also going to maybe talk postseason. Army just being basically the Navy game being Army's bowl game. We'll get to that in a little bit, but we'll welcome Seth Mendelson of Black Knight Nation with us and Brendan in Jersey to break down a little UMass game and there's some Army talk tonight on a Sunday night. Guys, if you're watching right now, check out our YouTube channel, subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can get all the podcasts, all the recaps, all our podcasts with guests like Mike Mayweather going back into the day. We have Seth Neiman on. We have a bunch of guests that we've had on that have been really good podcasts. I'm still getting feedback from our Nate Sassaman podcast, the two-parter. So check those out. Also check out Black Knight Nation website. Seth Mendelson's game stories up there. Photo gallery. Man, Margaret Kite had the best picture of Bryson Daly breaking off that touchdown run with the UMass guy in the background. That's up everywhere. And also we have a new recruiting story that I wrote on a Arizona defensive back Carlos Griffin committing to the Black Knights. Man, I'm a little behind on those recruiting stories, guys. Just bear with me on those. But we'll check out our Instagram too. Our Instagram's been really hopping. Now we'll get to the review. 44-7. And truth be told, I was in and out of this game on Saturday, had some family things to do, but was watching on my phone basically for most of and it's just what they needed, right? Just the Army need to keep the momentum going off that UConn game. They need to play some of the younger players in the second half, get the starters out of there by halftime, and so there's no injuries going into the Navy game. And that's what pretty much a summary of the game. Pretty much, I mean, Tyler with 3 touchdowns. A big game from Jacoby Buchanan reached the end zone twice. In this game. And guys, real quick before I get your thoughts on the game, I wrote I wrote a story on Tyler Saturday morning. I wrote a story on Tyler, and I, just where he's at statistically amongst Army quarterbacks as far as rushing touchdowns and the type of seasons he's had. I just felt it was warranted a little bit. He's not a numbers guy. He told you he's not a numbers guy, right, Seth? After the UConn game, and 24 touchdowns now in his career for an Army quarterback. That's third all time, tied with Kelvin Hopkins, and the only guys ahead of him are Ahmad Bradshaw and Trent Steelman. So I mean, and he's done that in 3 years. And now this game where he gets 102 yards, I think, in a half and 3 touchdowns, and just pretty just deserving of the player Tyre is, but the person Tyre is, and just when we'll go to Brendan with his thoughts on the game.
So, they did what they needed to do. They played the worst team in FBS, and they got a big win, and they should have. And yeah, I mean, I don't really to quote one of my favorite movies, Moneyball. This kind of thing. It's fun for the fans. It sells tickets and hot dogs. Doesn't mean anything. Which is not to say that it's not good that they got to win. Of course, I'm always happy when they win. I'm always happy when, they can play, everybody on the bench on the road. But I don't know. I'll have more thoughts when we talk about heading into the Navy game. But to me, it's like they did exactly what they should. I don't have anything really, more positive or negative to say than that.
I agree with Brendan. Yeah, wins a win, and we needed a win, and we got the win. We were trailing 7-0. I'm like, oh my God, here we go. But of course, that wasn't the case. They rattled off 44 straight points, and they look good. UMass is not a good team. They didn't look good on the first drive. They looked good. They seem to have us off balance, and into the second drive, as Monken said yesterday, and they seem to be okay. But this is definitely not a good football team. I hope they get better for their sake. I mean, UConn turned it around a little bit, with 6 wins this year, and I still don't think they're a good football team either. But this is a bad football team. This is a team that doesn't really seem to know where it's going. Lack of support. There's all kinds of things. So I'll take the win. I'm hoping that there weren't any major injuries from the game. We don't know that for sure. Monken, kind of, jumped at me when I asked him on the press conference yesterday about the he's not going to tell me anything, which is his standard policy. But I didn't see anybody really get too beat up because of the game. They played a lot of guys. That was good. 4 quarterbacks, as I predicted would happen. Daly had a touchdown run for, I think, 54 yards, something like that. I'm happy that we won the game. I'm happy that we're going into the Navy game, with 2 victories in a row. What I'm upset about? I'm upset we missed a field goal against Troy, and otherwise we'd be 6-5 instead of 5-6, and we'd be talking about what bowl game we're going to. I'm unhappy that we lost, close games to other teams. But I have to tell you something. This is something I realized last night. Troy, Coastal Carolina, UTSA, and somebody else are all playing for conference championships next week. Maybe it's only 3 of them. I thought there was a 4th.
I think it's just the 3.
Okay. Air Force is a good team. They're 9-3. They beat a pretty good San Diego State yesterday in a very defensive battle. If you want to turn the tables a little bit, we lost 4 games. Who are the other 2 games that we lost to? We lost to, besides those 4.
You also Georgia State.
Georgia State's a bad loss, but they lost to Wake Forest as well.
Okay, so Wake Forest kind of, they're obviously a big conference team, but they finished at 7-5 this year, so they weren't the team they were last year. Duke beat them yesterday, I think. But we lost to 4 good teams. 4 teams that are going places. 3 of them playing for conference championships. I think 2 are playing against each other. And of course, Air Force at 9-3, and Air Force is only a few points away from being 12-0. They lost to the best teams in the conference. They still lost. So maybe we can turn the tables around and say maybe this isn't such a bad Army team. But as far as beating Massachusetts, come on. They're the worst team, and they're probably ranked 170th, 150 to 170 of all teams.
Yeah, well, real quick, I watched the Air Force San Diego State game last night, and I almost fell asleep during that game. I mean, it was a defensive game pretty much. Brad Roberts had a big game for Air Force, but not too much else going on there. And that's how Air Force has won games this year. They've won some games where it's been down to the wire, tough grit, and Army's been down to the 4th quarter a couple times with like the Troys and the Air Forces and the Texas San Antonios and even the Coastals midway through the 4th quarter, and just hasn't found a way to win those close type games. So we'll see what happens with Navy. Just a couple notes on the UMass game real quick. So Army's without Ijon Marshall slot back in the game. They were without Miles Stewart slot back in the game. So Tyson Riley, pretty much the number 1 fullback for most of the season for Army, is playing slot back all game for Army. So I don't know if that's something that we see against Navy. You hope that Ijon Marshall can get healthy for enough to play in that Navy game. We'll see what happens. Jabari Moore got banged up at corner in this game. I don't think he came back into the game. I don't know how serious the injury was, but you already didn't have Bo Nicholas Paul at corner, So, I mean, there is some injury issues, and we'll see if the 2 weeks of a bye, or the bye week this week and then the practice week coming up for Navy, we'll see who's back on the field for the Black Knights. You hope they can be at close to full strength as possible as far as people on the field. Guys, these days, this part of the season, nobody's 100% healthy as far as players wise, right? There's all Nixon
Right.
that they're battling. But you hope that you can get your best guys on the field, and we'll see what happens. I also in the UMass game, I just want to note real quick, 4 turnovers, right? 2 fumbles, and 2 interceptions. I'll get to the interceptions in a second, but I want to talk about Jimmy Charlo a little bit on the podcast. Jimmy Charlo is a junior, and he's the only defensive player that started every game for Army this year. So he started all 11 games, and he was involved in the second fumble. I think it was credited to Max DiDomenico, but I think that they could have gave it to Charlo on that play, and he had a tackle for loss also in the first half. Just he's been pretty consistent this year. He's been on the field for almost every snap, and he's been pretty consistent. Just want to mention Jimmy Charlo, just his contributions this season. Then the interceptions, right? I looked this up. So Jaden Mays, the freshman corner, gets his first career pick in this game. I believe the last Army freshman to pick off a pass in a game were Elijah Riley and Jalen McClinton in 2016. So I looked up that stat real quick before the podcast. I believe that's true, and those are 2 pretty good players in the Army football run there when they were having a lot of success. Elijah's on the Steelers right now, and Jalen was a really really good safety for the Black Knights. So Jaden Mays gets his first career pick, and Seth DeAndre Tobias two straight games with a pick for the senior. That's awesome
Mhm.
to me because the guy's really put in the work to stay on the team, and I
Absolutely.
thought that was a highlight of the game.
Great to see that, and great to see the defense play as well as it did again. The goal line stand, was impressive again. Defense, we're talking, multiple games now where these guys are just, doing the job they're supposed to do, and impressive all the way around. Can't say enough about the Army defense on Saturday and the last few weeks.
3 goal line stands in the last 2 weeks for Black Knights. Let's see what happens against Navy and see if they can, so it's 17 points or less the last 4 games for the Black Knights defense, and it's 47 points allowed, I think, in the last 4 for the Black Knights. So I mean, you don't get into the 20s much in these service academy games lately,
Right.
right? So this game is going to probably be played in the teens, maybe. So hopefully the defense is up to the challenge against Navy, and we'll talk about that in a second. Brendan, so pretty much we're done talking to the UMass game for the most part. Real quick about bowl talk, right? And we've been talking about this the last couple weeks about what kind of chances does Army have? I mean, they're 5-6 right now. They have 2 wins over FCS teams. Over only 1 counts, and they would have to get a waiver for the second one. Um, have they applied for a waiver? Who knows? I mean, I don't know. We'll see what happens. I know there's some talk. It's just kind of a wait and see how many there are now. Apparently, from most reports, there's 3 bowl spots left right now. Buffalo plays on Friday against Akron. If they beat Akron, they get one of those. Well, there'd be 6-6. They would be a bowl eligible. And then you wanna run through what's going on the rest of the way, Brendan, for us.
So, yeah. So there's also potential because New Mexico State has only played 11 games this season, and they're at 5-6. So if they can get any FBS team to play them this coming weekend, which may not happen, they may just get denied. Which I feel bad for them for that because I don't know why their game against San Jose State got postponed. I'm assuming it's either weather or some kind of brush fire related thing. I don't know, but that would be tough for them if they finish at 5-6 and can't get to a bowl because nobody wants to play them.
How can somebody play them at this point? I mean, everybody probably has full schedules.
So San Jose State theoretically should give them, because San Jose State has only played 11 games as well.
Right, that's the only ones, yeah.
But it may not happen, and I don't know. I don't know whose court the ball is in on that. But regardless, I think Buffalo will probably earn a spot, and that knocks it down to two slots available for bowls. And at that point, you go to the academic progress rate list, and of the teams that are either totally eliminated from bowl contention or have already qualified, The top two are Rice and UNLV. Neither of those teams are going to turn down a bowl bid. And then after that, I don't remember the order, but it's Auburn, Michigan State, and Miami, Florida, which any bowl committee would, fall over themselves to have. And then Army is like sixth in line. So basically you would need like 4 or 5 schools to get swallowed up into the earth for Army to go bowling this year. I mean, technically there still is a chance, but you got about as good a chance as winning the Powerball. So that's why I keep my mantra is burn the ships. They are not going bowling this year. Navy is their bowl game. And I think if Army plays Navy like it is their bowl game, they'll probably do really well because they do better in bowl games than they do in service academy games, at least in terms of scoring.
Well, Navy's going to play Army like it's a bowl game. I'm going to bring up one other thing here, and Sal's going to jump on me, but I'm going to say it. How come we keep playing, because we're doing it again next year, how come we keep playing two non-FBS teams?
I have an explanation. I have an explanation. The Tennessee canceled against Army late. Army couldn't find an FBS opponent, so they had to schedule Villanova this year.
Okay.
Next season, Ball State took a game against Georgia, said, sorry, Army, we're not going to play you early in the season. We're going to play Georgia. We're going to take the big payday. Army's got to go looking for an opponent. And I'm not the schedule maker for Army, but I'm guessing that, they scheduled Delaware State. There weren't any FBS teams available to play for that date. So they've been
playing
when you're an independent, that's what happens. That when you're an independent, those are the type of things that can happen. So
I guess that's the reason. It makes sense. That could happen to anybody with their non-conference games. It seems to keep happening to us now 2 years in a row. It's unfortunate because we could, again, because the Navy game and the scheduling, I don't think it would matter much. But boy, it'd be nice to play, like everybody else does. Aren't we the only FBS school who plays 2 games against FCS teams?
Appalachian State played 2, right?
Yeah, I was going to say App State did that this season as well.
We're one of 2. Okay, so I mean, I don't know. I never quite understand it. I get what you're saying, but I think in 24 we're playing Dartmouth and is it Marist? We're scared of something like that. I know Marist.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, I mean, that's down the road. I mean, it's scheduled. I know it can change. Schedules change all the time. But I don't know. I'm not. But listen, we did win. There's a chance we would have lost that game and it'd be 4-7 instead of 5.
I take I take the future schedules with a grain of salt because I know that things can change before everything's finalized, and things can change after it's finalized too.
Yeah, and these games are made like 10 years in advance, right? The contracts, some of these contracts are scheduled way out, and you may have a team now that you scheduled down the road that are moving to a different conference, right? And may have a different conference schedule now than they had anticipated. So who knows? I mean, there's a lot of moving parts in college football as far as conference wise, and Army being an independent, has to kind of roll with it, so to speak. And that's the they're gonna have 12 games on their schedule every year. You hope you can get 11 of those games against FBS competition. So, Seth, you're kind of behind it every year, right? When you play 2 FCSs and only 1 counts, right, for a win. When you play Navy later in the season after the bowl selections are done, that's 2. You're working against it a little bit. You have to play.
So we essentially have to win. We have to win 6 out of 10 games because if we're playing 2 of them, you got to win 6 out of 10 games because the Navy game doesn't count because it comes after the bowls. If you're at 5, it comes after the bowl game. So it's an interesting thing. I guess I don't know. Maybe they don't care about getting to a bowl game as much as they care about winning games, and I don't know. I mean, it's.
Listen, if you beat 0-4 Georgia State at home, we're not having this conversation. I'm just going to throw that out there.
If you beat Georgia State,
I mean, that game kind of went south in the fourth quarter. I mean, that game,
UTSA, those 3 Air Force, those 4 games were all winnable, and
Coastal was a 3-point game well into the fourth quarter.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Hey, Munkin said, he goes, we were talking about, not this week, last week, about how the games were close. They went against us this time. They went against Army this year. In previous years, we had a couple of games that went in our favor. A couple of, was it Eastern Michigan a couple of years back? They went for
That's going
two.
way back. That's
Yeah,
going back, but
but that's
that's
still,
none of these guys. I don't think were on the team when that happened. So I
but I
mean,
think his
that's
point
going
is
way back.
sometimes you
Yeah.
win the battles and sometimes you lose the battles of the close ones. Unfortunately, we missed the field goal. We weren't in position for, Sal and I talked about it. Boy, it would have been nice to get another 10 yards to make the field goal a little bit easier. It didn't happen. A lot of misses. But anyway, the bottom line is here we are. I agree with you guys now. I think I think Navy's bowl game takes place a week from Saturday in Philadelphia. I think both teams. This is their second season. If they win this game, Navy will finish 5-6. We'll finish. I'm sorry, 5-7. Yeah, 5-7.
Yeah.
We'll finish 6-6 if we win. But this is everything. It's 0-0 going into this game because, as far as they're concerned, this is all that matters. And even more than apparently, even more than the Air Force game that they both play.
Yeah.
This is the game that matters. And I'm told we're a 3.5-point favorite. Did you guys hear that?
It's 2 right now.
Yeah,
It's a 2-point favorite. Last I saw. So
I saw 3 on FanDuel this evening. So
okay.
Yeah.
I
mean, that's pretty much a
suspect,
toss up.
yeah, I suspect that Vegas thinks Navy is either going to win outright or keep it close, and they're trying to goad people into taking like Army at a short number. But I don't know. That's purely conjecture on my part.
Yeah,
I think by the time we get to kickoff, it might be a pick 'em. I think it might be a pick 'em, or Navy could
Probably.
even be favored. Navy could even be favored by the time we get to kickoff. Who knows? And we'll just have to see. They got the extra week of they got two buys heading into the game. So we'll see how it goes, and they're coming off a big win. So I mean, how much can you keep momentum in 3 weeks going? It all depends on your practices and your captains and your coaches. And I know that I mean Navy, they're going to be amped up to play. You look at last year. Last year's game was just simply Navy wanted it more than Army last year. Navy wanted it more than Army last year, and the Army let them hang around a little bit too long, and Navy pretty much took control in the second half. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in a couple
I'll take
weeks
a page
at
from
Lincoln Financial Field.
I'll take a page from Munkin's comments, and whoever wins the turnover battle is going to win that game. And turnovers sometimes are a little bit of luck involved. So if we can come out and get win, we can get 3 turnovers and not lose any, or 2 turnovers and not lose any. We're going to have a better chance of winning, and vice versa. So these are 2 teams. They're probably evenly matched. They recruit the same type of kid in most cases, and it remains to be seen what's going to happen. But I'm excited about it because it's good to see that both of the teams, they're not 1-10 going into the game. They're 500, near 500 teams. Navy, had a couple of upsets this year. They beat a ranked team on the road. Army's looked good in a couple of games. Like we said, they lost a couple of games by just a field goal here and a touchdown there. But okay, so I can't wait. And by the way, we got to take into account the weather, in a week and a half, in 2 weeks. It could be sunny and 60, or it could be snowing. We don't know.
Yeah, I mean we'll see what happens. I'm gonna read comments. I'm not gonna be able to post comments tonight, but we are getting some comments, and I'm just gonna read them. Sorry for the technical difficulties tonight, but Mike Fulowski says in 2018, Hawaii, Miami, Air Force, and Navy all came down to the last play of the game. That season could have been somewhat similar to this year if we had some bad breaks of that year. So that's the year you were talking about, Seth, the 2018 year, right?
Yeah.
When they won all those close games, and yeah, I mean, but I mean, your goals on the board, when your Army, right, during the season is you know winning the Commander in Chief's trophy is probably number one, right? and beating Navy's up there too. So having a winning season, beating Navy, I mean, like you talk to the players, you talk to Coach Monk, and it's the biggest game of the year for them. And now with 11 games in the rear view, now it's something that they could definitely focus on and see. I think the defense has a pretty good idea about, you know, how they can play and their capabilities now. And, I think that they'll pretty confident that they'll have pretty good game. Gonna have to see what the offense comes up with because Brendan, I'm telling you, 2 weeks in a row, right? I didn't mention this in the UMass recap, but 2 weeks in a row, tight end down the seam for big plays. You know, um, Isaiah. We didn't even talk. How did we not mention Isaiah Austin's one-handed catch in the game against UMass? That was
Spectacular.
Oh yeah.
Sports Center's
Yep.
number. Yeah, I mean, Tyler completed both of his passes. Um, and he got the one to Austin, who made a great one-handed catch. It was on Sports Center's number 10 play. A lot of Army fans saying they didn't see 9 plays better than that in the sports world yesterday. Um, you know, and number 4 play on the college football final for ESPN's college football final. The guy was Seth. The guy was draped all over him too. The guy got
He was
the
holding his
defensive
arm.
back got called for,
He
yeah.
got called for PI. I mean, it was a spectacular catch, and it led to a touchdown, and turned the game around.
Yeah, and I think that, I'm not saying you throw the ball around, double digit times in this game against Navy. I have a feeling they're gonna, run the quarterback a lot and just try to get that fullback going. And but if you throw the ball in the air a little bit and have some success doing that, I mean, I don't granted, I don't I'll truth be told, I don't know how good, I've watched Navy games, right? I've watched maybe 1 or 2 full Navy games, but does Navy have a corner that can match up against Isaiah Alston? Do they have one? I don't know. Well, let's find out. Let's find out and throw the football a little bit. Just a little bit. Let's get that tight end a little bit more involved. If Navy's going to sink a 9 or 10 guys up, let's send Josh Lingenfelter up the seam. And maybe hopefully Ijon Marshall's back and Brahim Murphy too. You can get the slot backs involved a little bit. Except the slot backs were not involved much against UMass. They didn't use them at all. I mean,
They did. No, they didn't use them at all. And again, hopefully, Monken and his coaches they're holding stuff back. They're coming up with ideas. Every year in the Army Navy game, there's always something that somebody tries. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. They have to. We'll see what happens. And I mentioned before turnovers. I think that's crucial. The other thing is what offensive strategy is going to work on either team. Coach Ken, guy's been doing this for a long time. He's been playing Army for how many years he's been there? 20 years. And and Monken's been there for 7 or 8 now. And these guys have to know that they have to come up with something special. Navy knows Army and Army knows Navy like they're cousins, like they're brothers, because they are. And they run pretty much the same offense, and they practice against it. They know what they're doing. We saw that with Air Force. So it's going to be, we're going to be talking about this between now and game time in a week and a half, in 2 weeks, 2 weeks from yesterday. What are they going to try, and then what's the other team going to try to stop that? You mentioned this seam play to the tight end. You got to think that the Navy sees this. The last 2 games we've tried it, and they're going to be ready for that. They're going to be ready for this. But maybe Army has to try something else. Maybe a screen pass. Maybe more, get the slot backs more involved. I don't think the UMass game was. I think we knew we were going to win. We were pretty confident we were going to win, and maybe they held back a little bit because
it was vanilla, very vanilla game plan.
Right.
To a point. And last year, the end around plays by Navy really kind of hurt Army, right? I mean, the misdirection type plays really hurt Army, and the fake punt really hurt Army, in that game. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I mean, that those plays really stand out in my memory. I mean, being on the field, I believe I was on the field for at least the second half of that game, and just seeing those plays develop right in front of me, it was like, so you got to be the ball. You talked about the turnovers. ball security is important. I don't care about the turnover battles, so to speak, just ball security for Army. If the offense does not turn the ball over, they'll be fine. Just and they don't give the ball away deep into drives. You know, uh, not not game management. I would say game management. In this game, if you got fourth and short from the Navy 27, I mean, you're 27, do not go for it. Punt the ball away. Just play. If they play smart and they play sound, I mean, this game's going to be tight. It's going to go down to the wire, and we'll see. We'll see if Army can pull this one out.
Yeah. So
I agree.
I've already taken heat from people on social media for being quote unquote too negative going into this game, but I'm really like I see the numbers and I see what's in front of me, and I am by no means saying that Army can't win. Of course they can win. Like it's the Army Navy game. Like, of course they can win. But just in the context of this season, for them to win this game, it would be the first time this season that they've beaten a team that is close to or above their level. They've certainly competed with teams above their level, but they never were able to finish against anybody, against any of the good teams they played. As opposed to Navy, who, Navy just knocked off a top 25 team in UCF. UCF's better than anybody that Army's played this season, let alone beaten. So
maybe. I think Texas San Antonio is pretty good. They
are. And Texas San Antonio and Troy, they're not far behind. But also, Army hasn't won any close games this season. The only games they have won have just come from basically overwhelming inferior opposition. And so that just in the context of this season, combined with the fact that in the last two service academies they played, Air Force this year and Navy last year, offense shutout in the second half. Like I'm just like, I'm not feeling good about this. Of course I want them to win. I'm hoping I can find a ticket to the game. I'd love to go, but I'm just saying there's a lot that Army would have to overcome in one game in order to get a win.
By the way, I may have tickets for you, so I may have two extras. So if you really
let me get to this. Let me get to this comment from Andrew S. If you don't mind. I think we should try to get Alston involved a bit more. If we want to run effectively, need to be careful. But I see him as a mismatch. Don't want to see the lack of offensive options we felt we had versus Air Force. Yeah, I mean, I think that sometimes I want to make this point, and I guess this podcast is right now is the best time to make this point. I think sometimes you play to the rivalry, right? I think sometimes you play a little bit. I don't know if I want to say conservatively, but it seems like you have a set of plays that you're going to call no matter what in these games, right? I mean, it seems like that there could be a little bit more. I don't know if creativity is the word, but maybe a little bit more of, like Andrew S. is trying to say, I was trying to say before, a little bit more of mixing it up. And hey, if it's a first down and 10, maybe not give it to the fullback. Maybe try to get to the outside some way, somehow. Just I don't know. Predictable is more the term I think I'm looking for. Predictable. I think that these games, Army's offense tends to be a little predictable in these service academy games because they know each other so well. So maybe try to be a little less predictable is what I was trying to get at.
Let me throw something out to that comment. If we need to get the ball to Alston more often, okay, but they know that Navy's going to be covering it. They're going to put their best man on him. Why don't we have a second receiver where maybe we fake it to him and go to him? I mean, this is what you got to do. You got to be inventive. I was paying attention to what was going on with Nebraska and my thoughts of who was going to get the job, and somebody out there wrote something about Army or the Army coach getting the job, and his comment was, they run a high school level option offense. And why would you give the job to a coach who runs a high school? This is some guy in Nebraska. I don't know who it was. Okay. And the bottom line is, we got to play the game the right way here, which means you got to come up with a strategy that they know they're going to Austin. We know that when they pass the ball, there's got to be somebody else on the team who can run a route and catch a ball. The tight end does it.
It's the slot
There's
back.
got to be another receiver who can get open 15 yards on the field. And if
It's
not,
those
there's
slot
something
backs
wrong.
because. Oh, go ahead, Seth.
No, I'm done. Not even the slot backs. The slot backs are still starting in the backfield. Okay, there's got to be another receiver on this team somewhere who has a level of speed and can catch the ball that you can put him in there and maybe throw the ball to him and he can catch it. Please tell me there is, because at this level there should be.
Have you watched the 11 games this year, Seth?
That's what I'm talking. Exactly what I'm talking. Yes, I've watched.
How many catches from wide receivers not named Isaiah Alston does Army have this year? They haven't used Cole Catterbone. Maybe Cole Catterbone was a reliable target last year. They haven't used him a lot in targets. Vishay Daniels, their other wide receiver that gets snaps. They're really thin at wide receiver this year.
What's the answer to that question? Is it none? Is it how many wide receivers have caught the ball besides Isaiah?
I think that Cole might have a catch. Cole might have a catch. Daniel might. I'll look that up. Why? Brendan, if you have anything to add, or I'll look that up.
That tells me there's something wrong. That tells me there's something.
Why is there something wrong? That's their offense, but
because
you're not just going to create this guy. You're not going to create these guys, Seth.
But
there's no Xavier Mosses on this roster.
No, but they have a tight end who can catch.
They have a tight end who catch, and how many times have we thrown to him? 3, 4 times?
3.
3 times. I'm sorry. That tells me I'm not a genius when it comes to college to football strategy, but I've been watching this game for 100 years almost, and it says to me that there's something wrong if you don't have options to it's like we talked a few weeks ago that everybody in the house knew that Army was going for in 4th and 1. Everybody in the place knew that it was going to be a fullback dive, and it was, and they stopped us. I think it was against UConn, maybe. I don't know who it was, UConn or Georgia State, and the bottom,
definitely Georgia State.
Yeah, I mean the bottom line is that's what these guys are getting paid big bucks to come up with. Recruit. If we're not recruiting the best guys, there's something wrong. And if we are recruiting them and we're not putting them into the game, there's something wrong. So there's something wrong.
Yeah. So Army wide receivers not named Isaiah Alston have 1 catch this year. Cole Catterbone 1 catch for 7 yards. Last year they had a Regan Donaldson, right? Was a wide receiver last year, and he did not play this year. I heard that he was going to be like a student coach, so to speak, this year. I don't know if I think he might be with the team. I'm not sure if he is. And they had in the past they had guys like Brandon Jones, who was out of Virginia. They have the spring practices. They have the fall the preseason practices. They determine who's going to be on the team. They determine who's not going to be on the team. And they were hoping Ryan Jakovic would be healthy this year. He's the guy who caught a couple passes last year, big target, like a 6'5" guy. He hurt his foot in the preseason, and he hasn't played a game yet. Coach Munkin was telling us after the UConn game that there's an outside shot that maybe Jakovic could get back for the Navy game, but I mean that's kind of hard when you haven't practiced, most of the year, right? And you're trying to come back for that one game. So I mean, they just they were going with Cole Catterbone, Isaiah Alston, and Vishay Daniel as their wide receivers right now. Casey Reynolds has gotten some reps. He's a sophomore. Yeah, and there's a couple young wide receivers, but none of them ready for. None of the freshmen ready to play, regular snaps right now. So, I mean, it's just the way the offense is.
Out of comparison, Navy runs pretty much the same offense we run. if you can look this up, if you have it available, how many guys on Navy have caught passes this year? Can we look that up?
Well, I mean, you have guys that have caught pass. I was just on the Army. I could look it up. I was just on the Army stats, and you have eight different receivers for Army have caught passes this year so far
How
for
many in
Army.
total? How many passes in total?
How many have they? How many
Caught,
passes and
all big
how many
guys.
completions?
Yes.
Man, Seth, you're really putting my math skills to
No,
work
no,
here tonight.
no.
40 completions.
Okay, so we have 40 completions this year. That's pretty good. Um, okay, I mean, what does Navy have? How many, how many receivers are out there catching balls?
They,
Again,
I
I'm
don't.
just saying that we're going into this
Go
game.
ahead, Brendan. Go ahead.
Yeah,
We're talking about passing when the
I don't. I
teams are
don't
going to
know.
run 100 times this game.
I don't know the. I don't. I'm not familiar with Navy's roster, so I don't know the position breakdown. But I just know they've had 9 different players catch balls this season.
Yeah, and they have quick math. They have 53 completions this year.
Okay.
So
Well,
53 to
okay, we're
40. I
going
mean,
into this thing.
yeah,
What I
could
want
Army have thrown the ball more this year? Yes, they could have when they won games without even completing a pass. They have 3 wins without even completing a pass this year, So, I mean, could they have thrown the ball a little bit better this year? Will it be a factor 2 Saturdays from now? We'll see. We'll see. I mean, in these service academies where the play action pass.
I think we lost you there.
I'll go ahead. Go ahead, Seth. Do you have anything?
No, I'm actually
Yeah. Not the greatest tonight.
I'm looking up the Army stats right now. So, as we're talking,
We're gonna
uh,
do. Yeah. Hey, before we wrap this up, because my connection's not working the best tonight. So we got a little tease today with Army's uniforms for the Army Navy game. They should be, Brendan, your prediction was 100 first airborne,
Yeah,
right?
my 101st Airborne. And when you say tease, it is literally a tease because they give no clues whatsoever.
Yeah, and
well,
I'm
did
thinking,
Navy
when are
have?
they gonna Okay,
They'll
go
probably
ahead.
announce them tomorrow or Tuesday. Is Navy doing something with NASA? Is that what I heard?
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, what's that have to do with Navy, the Navy or the Marines? I mean, I think Neil Armstrong didn't he go to school in Ohio somewhere? I don't think he went to the Naval Academy.
Purdue, yeah.
Purdue, okay, there you go. In
He
Indiana.
was, he was a Navy flyer, but he's not a he wasn't an Annapolis grad. As as I said to somebody, I'm like, this it would be like uh it would be like if Army did like special uniforms honoring Audie Murphy. Like, great guy, but he wasn't a West Point grad, so
Right.
I think people would flip out. But I
Amazing.
don't
I
know.
don't even know who that is, Brendan. I don't even know who that is. Who's Audie
Audie
Murphy?
Audie Murphy,
Audie
like
Murphy was the
Medal
most
of Honor
decorated.
winner, played
I'm
himself
sorry.
in the movie about his own life story.
I'm
Audie
sorry,
Murphy was
man.
the most decorated. He was the most decorated American in World War II
There it
soldier.
is.
Yeah,
Okay.
and he was this good-looking guy.
Not a
He came
history
out.
major.
Yeah, he came out, won the Medal of Honor, and then became a movie star, and unfortunately died young in a plane crash. Died probably in his mid-30s, I think. But yeah, he was the guy. He was like
You
Sergeant
know,
York was in World War One. Audie Murphy was in World War Two.
Mhm.
Gotcha. Sorry, not a history major. I apologize to all all the people watching right now. You know what? I will give Navy credit at least for doing something different, even though whatever it is, and we'll see what Army comes up. But normally, they do the reveal in front of the football team, and they do the reveal in front of some of the core, if not all the core. So we'll have to see
Yeah,
if that happens in
yeah,
the next 2 days. So they're going to have the Army Navy Media Day this week. I would guess that in the middle of the week, I would guess they would have the jerseys revealed by then. But we'll see what happens. I mean, we haven't really gotten any coming soon. I'm guessing is tomorrow. I'm guessing tomorrow they'll reveal it, but I have no intel whatsoever about what who the jerseys are going to represent or when they're going to be represented, when they're going to be revealed, so to speak. Sorry about that. Um, but that's normally I think in the last, not just because we covered a team here, I thought that the Army jerseys have been pretty consistent, and been pretty sharp for this game and have won the jersey kind of battle, so to speak, against Navy in most years. So
yes.
that's just one man's opinion.
I agree with you. I agree with you.
I will say I give Navy absolutely no credit. I think they are actively bad at this, and it's embarrassing. But apparently, they just don't care. Army puts great care into this. They work with Nike. They get Nike to work with their history department, and Navy has no interest in doing anything on that level. Not to mention Under Armour stinks anyway. It's bad. It's
Uh, let's win the game. That's the most important. I don't want to win the uniform war. I want to win
exactly. We won the uniform battle last year, but we didn't win the game, and ultimately it didn't matter. Let's win the freaking game this
let's
year.
win the game. That's all I care about. So let's see. And by the way, I have the various Army helmets here over the years.
Oh no, here we go. Those are various Army helmets from the Army Navy game.
The Army Navy game. I think I have 4 or 5 of them scattered around my room here. The miniature helmets. They make them available. They seem to sell them to online. They're $25. They start off higher. Don't buy them right after the game. My consumer tip for the day: do not buy them before January, February of next year if you want to get a good deal. If you want to spend double what you can spend 3 months later, then go ahead and buy them. If you want to get them for a Christmas gift, then you got to get them now. But these things are always sold because people buy them. I'm one of them. I'm one of them. So they're cool.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's the bye week. This is a bye week for Army, right? The biggest news will be pretty much the jerseys for this week. What uniforms they're going to be wearing for the Army Navy game, and then next week we'll get into we'll probably do a preview of some sort next week. Maybe a little bit more X's and O's. See if we can get Steve Anderson on here to break down the game, and trying to get a guest for Thursday night for the podcast. Somebody that's played a role in a recent Army Navy win. Reaching out to a few people, see if we can get somebody on. Don't have anybody booked yet, but like to during the bye week would like to get some former Army players on if possible for the podcast too. We're gonna be wrapping up the podcast in a couple minutes. If anybody else has any other comments or questions or suggestions, we'll get those on. It's I think it's pretty good. Some Army fans, right? Of course, they want winning seasons, and of course, they want to go to bowl games and they want to win Commander in Chief's trophies, right? This team, for where it kind of was at to where it is now, I mean, everything's on the table now to get to 500 and to beat Navy. To get that, there are a lot of players on this team that were on the field last year for that game against Navy, and there was a lot of disappointment after that game. I mean, I remember just being on the field and just kind of, I mean, you just saw it in Navy, just kind of when Navy players are jumping into the stands and they're singing second, and just the faces on the Army players. I mean, it wasn't a good scene for Army for the program, and the fans that follow the team. So there's a lot of guys that saw action in that game last year that are going to be fired up to play. Um, you know, some of those players that had a pretty big part for Army or have graduated or are injured right now. So, but you know, we'll see what Army does. I think no doubt. I think Tyre is going to be the starting quarterback for this game. I don't think there's any question about that. The last 2 games, he's gotten the offense going, and I think that I don't know if who knows how they handle the quarterback situation. We'll see how the game unfolds, but you know, at least we got a glimpse of the future in the UMass game, Bryson Daly, and what the Army quarterback position might look like next year. I know that that's you know that's the future, but I mean it's good to see the way Bryson Daly runs. I'm surprised that they haven't gotten him a little bit more involved in the offense of playing like a slot in the slot or a fullback or something else, right? Because I mean, I think that we see in the UMass game, Seth, they ran Buchanan, right? Buchanan had success. He scored a couple touchdowns. They brung in Markel Johnson as a little bit of a change of pace, right? And Markel broke off a big run, and he had some pretty good runs. So maybe they do that against Navy. Maybe they is Tyson Riley going to play slot back against Navy? We'll see. But maybe they bring in Markel Johnson as a change of pace. Maybe they bring in Hayden Reed every once in a while, so they don't have to. They keep Buchanan and Riley fresh, and maybe
If
then that'll set up some passing that we were talking about, or maybe that'll
man,
set up
if
the
they
outside.
can,
And
To Brendan's point before, Navy's a better team than the teams we've beaten this year, and they're certainly a better team than a lot better team than UMass. I don't, I'm glad we won. I'm excited. It was a great victory yesterday. That doesn't mean anything to me what these guys did because they're playing against a team. I might have had 50 yards yesterday. You know, you know, you know.
I will say though, to Sal's point, if they can roll four fullbacks deep against Navy, I will feel a lot better about our chances because that's something we didn't have in the game last year. I don't think.
Well, we'll see.
yeah,
Hopefully we'll hear about the injury set. I mean, I know he doesn't like to talk about injuries, but maybe we'll find something out to see who's eligible, who's going to play in 2 weeks, and who's not. And if we get most of these guys back, as I'm sure Navy will too, that's going to help us. Comes down good coaching, good playing, and having the best talent on the field. And then the weather plays a little bit of a role if weather does come into play. So we'll see what happens. I have no idea what the weather's going to be. I have no idea who's going to fumble more. I just hope the coaches come up with a good strategy offensively and defensively, and I hope Army wins because it's nice to win. I'd be content with a 6-6 record this year. I don't think we could have been better. We could have been worse too, I guess. But I guess every game we won though was a kind of a blowout, wasn't it? I think, yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah. But anyway, let's see what they come up with. The pressure's on Army to come through this year, this next Saturday, week from Saturday, on the coaches. They got to come up with something because if they do what they did against Air Force, I don't know.
Yeah, I think yeah, you're right. The ball's kind of been Army's court after last year being, the favorite and not getting the job done, and now this year trying to, man, I'm gonna just say it. I mean, does a win over Navy salvage this season? Does it
Well, you're
salvage the
six and
season a win
six.
over Navy?
You're 6-6, so it's a combination of being 6-6 and beating Navy. It's something. It's something. Being 5-7 and losing to Navy and Air Force. That's a
Yeah.
bad season. That to me is a bad season.
I look at Brendan. You have anything? I'm sorry.
So I think I think this season is kind of a disappointment no matter how you slice it. But if they beat Navy, it's less of a disappointment, and it's revenge for last year, and I would certainly take that at this point. But I think this will end up going down as um, you know a middle of the road season for Monken, and it does speak to where the program's at that this is considered a disappointment. But yeah.
Yeah, and I was thinking about like the guy, I was trying to make a point way back when in this podcast about the guys who were on the field last year and guys who like the guys like Marquell Broughton, right? Guys like Andre Carter, guys who may be some of the best players that we've seen at their position at Army in a long time, right? And these guys playing for the last time, possibly in an Army uniform, playing for the last time in a service academy game, playing for the last time against Navy. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of pride there with guys like those two guys, a Connor Bishop, a 3-year starter at center. There's going to be a lot of pride, and you hope that everything's in line, and you hope that they play fundamentally sound, right? Fundamentally sound as Jeff Monken would like, and you hope they'll be singing second because those guys have put in a lot of work into this program, and quite frankly, like guys like Marquell, Andre, and Connor in that senior class deserve to go out winners. So now they just have to back it up on the field. That's how I feel. So
I agree. I hope for the best. Know that the Navy guys are saying the same thing. I think Navy. I think the last 5 years are we 2-2 against Navy? Is that right? The last 4 years, are we 2-2? We lost last year. I think we won the 2 previous years. Whatever.
Yeah, they lost when Malcolm.
Yeah,
they lost Malcolm Perry.
Yeah, they lost in 2019 and last year. So yeah, 2-2. You nailed it.
Okay, so 2-2. So everybody's sitting there saying that the Navy guys are sitting there saying the same thing. They want to go out as winners. The seniors want to go out as winners. They want to go out with a winning record against Army. Army wants to go out with a winning record against Navy. This is Monken said it. He said it yesterday. And I thought it was a great comment by him. This is what matters. This is the game that everybody pays attention to for the next 365 days. And you kind of laugh at it once in a while. How about the other 11 games? How about Air Force? But this is the game, and this is what they all care about because, hey, this is America's game. You got, the ratings are sky high. People, root for Army. People have nothing to do with Army and Navy. They pick a side, maybe because their grandfather was in, the Navy or the Army or whatever it might be. And the ratings are good. They're great sometimes. They have nobody else going against them, which helps usually. But this is the game, and so I just hope, again, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. I hope that Monken talks the talk. He's got to walk the walk now. He's got to sit there with his coaches and come up with a game plan that will catch Navy off guard because that's what Navy's trying to do to Army. And somebody's going to win this game. Doesn't end in a tie anymore. We know that. Okay. And, let's hope it's us. Let's hope that, our coach who we like and we have a lot of respect for, and we all three of us do. We think Monken's done a spectacular job at West Point in his tenure. Let's hope that he has one more in him this season and he can take us to the promised land because it means everything. For me, I'm a fan. I didn't go to West Point. I grew up 30 miles south of it, and that's my love of it. And I come from, somewhat of a military family. But the bottom line is they lose this game. I'm bummed out. We lost the game last year. I was there, and I was shocked. And, then we won the bowl game. Still didn't matter. I sat there and said, boy, if we would have just beat Navy, would have been, what did we finish last year? 10-3?
9-4.
9-4? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we would have been 10-3, and it would have been better,
Yep.
Double digit. This game means everything to them, and it means everything to me. And I think a lot of our fans. And let's win the uniform war. Let's win the coin toss. Let's win everything. Let's win everything. And the three of us can sit here on that Sunday night after the game and say, okay, good season. Oh, not a great season. If there's no bowl game, which we don't think there's going to be at this point, okay, 6-6. We beat Navy. We didn't beat Air Force. We didn't get to a bowl game, but we're 6-6, and that's not so bad in an off year. And this appears to be an off year for us. And maybe we start over again next year. 2000 and what year was it? 2018. Or was it 19? We 1 year we didn't hit expectations. And
19 was 5-8 season.
Yeah, 5-8. That's when we gave Michigan a tough game, right? And we end up losing that. And then Rice was, we barely beat a bad Rice team. We can bounce back. Maybe maybe some kids will come in next year and change this all around for us. Who knows? That's my take on it, and I'm looking forward to the game. I'm happy I'm going to be there. Brendan, let me know if you need the tickets, and I can't wait for it. I can't wait for the whole thing. I love it.
I will confess something to you guys, and this plays into the idea of these podcasts as also group therapy. I'm a grown man. I sleep well probably 97% of the time. It's once in a blue moon, if that I have a nightmare. I've had nightmares about this game since last year. And the worst thing is there's nothing I can do to control it because I'm not in the game. So just for me personally, beating Navy this year would go a long way just for my personal psyche. So
there you go.
That's
a good way to just getting both of your guys' personal thoughts. Go ahead, Seth.
I was at the Army-Navy game in 1973. They lost 51-0. Okay, trust me. I was a kid then, but trust me, the drive home was horrible, horrible. Okay. On the other hand, I was watching the game on TV in I think it was 1967, 68 when we won 27-0. I may be getting it's either 67, 68, or 69. And I watched the game on TV with my dad and my brother, and we were like high-fiving each other that, they looked so good, and, they beat Navy. So I've had the ups and the downs, and I've had 14 years of consecutive losses, and my Navy friends telling me we're not the same level as they are. Let's put some fire underneath our coaching staff to come up with something that's going to work. And let's hope they do it. And I don't want to see fullback dives every play. Let's try something else. Dude, that's good too.
Sometimes. Not this year. Last year, a few more fullback dives probably would have won them the game, but this year that's not going to happen.
Yeah, well,
but anyway, I forget. Man, like I wish I could give proper attribution. There was a great one of the big like college football writers or pundits or whatever. He said, and it might have even been a full article. This year's just a blur for me, guys. I apologize. But he said college football is not about championships, it's about exorcisms. That is what draws people to it and on a consistent basis. Mm-hmm. And beating Navy this year for Army would be a pretty significant exorcism given everything that's happened this season. So that's what I'm hoping.
I agree with that. Here we go. We go.
We'll wrap it up there. Really appreciate you guys watching. We had our most viewership tonight for a UMass recap, and you throw Navy in there. We're going to talk a little Army Navy, and we get some viewers. We'll be back. We'll be back with a preview too, and Seth and I will be down at Lincoln Financial Field covering the game in 2 weeks, and we'll have a photographer there too, and we'll give you the best coverage we could possibly give you from that game. That's my goal when we cover games live. It's best possible coverage, and we'll give you everything we can. And we really appreciate you checking out our podcast tonight. YouTube channel. Give us a subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. Hit the bell for notifications so you know when we're going to come on next. And check out Black Knight Nation for all stories on Army football and some recruiting news also. So we'll sign off now, guys. Thanks so much, and we'll be back with more on the Army Navy game down the road. And have a good night.
Good night,
Navy. See ya.